we would like to have your opinion also on the topic then.
No. That it won't be proper on my part to intrude in the panelist discussion.
Okay. Devyani, I think you can start.
Okay, ma'am. So good afternoon, everyone. I, Devyani Prasad, welcome you all on behalf of Team ADR Hawk to the panel discussion session of the International Summit 2021 organized by ADR Hawk with AIADR as a supporting organization on the occasion of ADR Hawk's first anniversary. The newly evolved mode of online mediation has been dominating conversations in the international mediation recently. So due to increased dependency on technology in COVID era. In this panel discussion, we aim to discuss the issues, challenges, and the future ahead with respect to online mediation. Today, we have in our panel Ambassador, retired, Mr. Chuck Kanafi, and Ms. Push Gupta, who shall be joining us in some while. First, I would like to, and I would also like to welcome Sami sir. I would like to call upon Ms. Mehak Rathi, the founder of ADR Hawk, to welcome our panelists.
Thank you so much, Devyani. I welcome you all to this panel discussion and to the summit. Today, actually, yes, ADR Hawk has turned 1. And I'm glad that we are having this panel discussion on online mediation and the issues and challenges which are associated with online mediation. Of course, with COVID and lockdown, there has been a drastic shift on technology. I don't think so we have any other option but to resort to technology at this moment. ODR has gained momentum and ODR is being discussed every now and then, and each and every webinar or any session that is happening talks about online dispute resolution. There are, of course, various issues and challenges which are there when we talk about mediation. Arbitration, there are so many discussions, but mediation has its own intricacies. And I'm not denying the advantages, of course, which this online system has brought with it. It is more convenient, it is more time saving, but there are certain issues which I think our expert panel members can help us understand better, and they can tell us how should we deal with these issues. So of course, I'm not a mediation expert per se, but I have learned a lot about mediation from the seniors and from everybody who's associated with ADR Hawk. We also conducted a webinar on psychology of mediation. So I've always believed, when I was in my law school, I saw mediations, and I've always believed that all the mediators, they have a magical wand in their hands. They can settle a 10-year long dispute in like 4-5 sessions. So of course it requires a lot of patience on part of the mediator, and it's a skill that all of us should learn. So yes, when we were doing this panel discussion, I also got to know that there are so many things that mediator has to keep in mind. For example, body language of the parties is to be witnessed, so that you know, okay, what is going on in his mind, what is the tone, how the party is thinking, what is going on. And of course, when we are conducting mediation physically, you can see both the parties, how the other party is responding to that particular to the one party, and how is their temper. you can talk individually to both the parties. You can send one party out. And then there are, of course, when we are talking about challenges pertaining to online mediation, there are challenges of confidentiality. Mediation is very confidential. So there are these challenges and issues which I feel needs to be addressed. And of course, we have Pushp ma'am with us, Kanafi sir with us, who can give us insights as to how they deal with these challenges, how they deal with these issues when they are conducting mediation, and what is the way ahead with online mediation. How do we ensure that it is as effective as physical mediation? Over to you, Devyani. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. If Sameer sir, you'd like to, your welcome address too.
Well, thank you, Devyani. And first of all, let me again congratulate you all at ADR Hawk for your first anniversary, which is actually today. So we started this summit 2 days ago. I mean, of course, it's a matter of celebration, and the work which has been done through 1 year is really commendable. And I'm sure that it's going to take much further leap in the coming years. Having said that, and I echo what Mahek said, so far as online mediation is concerned. You see, many of even mediators and the beneficiary and stakeholders, they even now, to a larger extent, don't understand a difference between a online or a virtual mediation. What we are doing right now, this meeting, many say it's online, but it's not. I mean, you have to understand the difference between virtual and online. See, if you are able to see and converse with somebody in non-physical, but in a live way, as we are doing now, this is what virtual world is all about. And today, of course, we are compelled to follow this, implement this technology like Zoom and other platforms, though these technologies were not, they are not new. Before this pandemic, especially international disputes were being resolved through video conferencing, especially cross-border disputes, to save cost and time. So it was nothing new for the dispute resolution community as such, though it was more used in arbitration and not in mediation, because of course, unlike arbitration, mediation is much more involved with the psychology of the parties and the stakeholders involved in that particular dispute. So I'm sure the panelists, the esteemed panelists of today's session would definitely be discussing about them. And with that in mind, I heartily welcome both our esteemed panelists, who are dear colleague and friends of mine, Chuck Kanafi and Pushp Gupta. Both are expert and well experienced in their field of mediation, and that is one of the main reasons why we thought of bringing them on board for today's session, and so that we listen to their experiences and their expertise of how best online mediation can be worked for what is happening or what has actually happened in last 1.5 years of pandemic so far as online mediation is concerned, and what is the way forward, what is the future of this process. So a warm welcome to both of you, Chuck and Pushp, and I'm sure the participants would be gathering back immense knowledge and expertise into online mediation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for this words. Now, we'll start with the panel discussion. First, I would like to introduce and call upon Ambassador Menahem Chuck Kanafi, who is an advocate and third-party neutral, focusing on resolving cross-border commercial disputes with experience in India, the United States, Israel, Africa, and Germany. He studied law at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and served as an appellate prosecutor and senior civil law counsel in the government. Thereafter, Mr. Chuck embarked upon on a 3 decades long diplomatic career, including the legal, political, and UN functions, culminating with the ambassadorial post in Ghana, Eritrea, and as the Consul General in South India. Upon retirement in the foreign services, Mr. Chuck established himself in private collaborative legal practice concerning on mediating disputes in international trade and legal aspects of the medical cannabis industry, specifically focusing on international commercial disputes. Mr. Chuck is admitted to practice in New York State and in Israel and maintains a presence in New York, Berlin, and Tel Aviv. Mr. Chuck serves on the advisory boards of a number of educational ADR initiatives in India and has served as a judge in international mediation competitions. And is a member of the International Committee of the International Cannabis Bar Association and has moderated panels at their Cannabis Law Institute in 2019. We wholeheartedly welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much, Devyani, and also Samir for your kind words. And I'm happy and I feel privileged also to be able to celebrate the first year of ADR Hawk's existence. Also as one of the international advisors, I'm happy to see the successes and the progress that you've been making, especially in a year which has not been very a simple year to do anything. On the other hand, of course, with everything being virtual and not online, as Samir says, with everything being virtual, it gives me the possibility of taking part in conferences like these, and I'm very happy to do so. I want to talk. I will talk a little bit later on, I think, about the let's say the practicalities of ODR, of online dispute resolution. But I'd like to start with giving a little bit of more of a framework, because sometimes as mediators, especially as commercial mediators, we get caught up in settlement. All we're interested is in settling. We want to get, and that's what our clients are looking for as well. Ms. Mark said, you solve cases that have been running for 10 years or something, and then everybody is very happy, with you. But when you look at the wider field of mediation, especially when you're looking at mediating for local civil cases, perhaps, and even family cases, you see that there are other factors in play, and other reasons why mediation is desirable and positive. So I want to start with an anecdote which is actually not in favor of ODR, but is actually a little bit opposed, which started at the beginning of the pandemic. A person called me, a woman, a potential client called me, and she indicated that she and her husband had decided to divorce. Normally, I don't do family cases, but this was a referral by a friend and a mentor of mine, so I figured I should be doing that. And I gave her the standard introduction that we give during these sort of calls, and told her it was, as I said, 16 months ago. It was in March or April of last year, I think, and because of the pandemic, that we couldn't do the mediation in person. We could only do it virtually over Zoom. And her response was, no way am I going to do this in person. I need to sit in the room with him. I need to look him in the eye and tell him we'll wait a few weeks. Of course, those few weeks have now turned into a year and a half, and there's still no end in sight. And I speak with her every few weeks, and she still says, no, I still don't want to do it by Zoom. I want to do that. So that psychological aspect that actually both of the people who've introduced have mentioned is very important, and is in fact important in commercial cases as well. Again, we tend to think of a hard-boiled CEO who all he cares about is money, and the lawyer from the other side, but the emotions tend to run high, and the psychological factors do tend to play a role in it. However, we've been here now for a year and a half under these sort of restrictions. In Germany, the restrictions were lifted a few months ago as the numbers decreased, but nevertheless they're coming back. So it's obvious that if we want to get disputes resolved, then this is the way forward for many reasons. When we look at the courts, especially here in Germany and in the United States as well, there was a big rush to get the courts open again, to get in-person hearings going again, and I think that points out one of the major differences between mediation and adjudication. I'm going off a little bit of a tangent here, but we are going into the psychology of it. That a big difference between mediation, and I'm talking about mediation, not really arbitration, even though this is an ADR forum, that what concerns mediation, and this everybody learns in their initial mediation courses, is the autonomy of the parties. Whereas in the judicial system, it's more concerned with doing justice, or actually preserving the interests of society. The individual person, there's a winner and a loser, and the loser's interests are not preserved. Whereas in mediation, the interests of both sides are actually preserved. And that then goes to the question of how we are going to do the mediation. Are we going to do it in person? Are we going to do it online? That is to say, partially electronically, partially personally. We're doing a hybrid sort of fashion, or are we going to do it entirely virtually? And our role as a mediator, of course, we have our own interests. We want to do it. It's easy for me to sit at home and to do a case between Germany and India, like I do sometime. Of course, that's much easier than me flying to Dubai, flying the Indian side to Dubai, flying the German side to Dubai, so that we're in a neutral place. Everybody has a lot of cost, expenses, and time, and so forth. But it's much easier for me to do that, but it's not necessarily easier for the party, for whatever reason. As I said at the beginning, the party wanted to look the other party in the eyes. The woman wanted to do that. So I think our role then as mediators, and again, this is the bigger picture, our role as mediators is to bring all of the information to the clients, so that then they can make an informed decision. And the mediation doesn't begin, as any mediator will tell you, the mediation doesn't begin the moment everybody sits down in the room or the moment everybody enters the Zoom call now in the online world. The mediation begins already in the beginning of the talks, when we encourage and we support the autonomy of the parties to make those decisions. There's a lot of suspicion, of course, even now, of using virtual tools to mediate. And again, it's our job to address those concerns, of course. But it is our job as well to underscore the positive things. And therefore, I'm going to concentrate a little bit more on the positive aspects rather than the negative aspects. Once again, saying that we have to that we do have to bring all of the information to the knowledge of our clients. And again, I think that's the most important thing, and I will return to that point as well. Again, I was going to mention that ODR has been around for a long time, as Mr. Samir has mentioned. In fact, especially in commercial mediation, the moment you have somebody submit their claims or an opening statement or something by email, it's already online. It's already ODR, because that is part of the mediation process as well. But what I'm really going to be referring to here is in general when we're talking about the Zoom conference. However, there is another advantage, which we will see a little bit later on, to using these technologies, even when we're not talking about sitting in the same Zoom room at the same time. would like to first address one of the considerations that, and those of you who have been trained in mediation and have even taken part in mediation competitions know this very well, that one of the things you're always told to do is to ask the parties if they are entitled to, or if they're authorized to make decisions for the entire mediation. And of course, as a matter of technicalities in these conversations, and it happens in the real mediation room too, the answer is always yes. Yes, of course, I'm here. And I'm capable to decide. In the real world, however, it happens so often that you get to an agreement at the end. A number has been agreed on, all sorts of conditions have been agreed on, and then one of the parties says, yes, and I have to take this to my CFO, or yes, I have to take this back to the board. So in a sense, they weren't actually acting in good faith when they said that they were empowered to make any decision, because the moment that they need someone else to make that decision or to approve that decision, that means that they were not empowered. But I'm not going into necessarily that aspect of it. But it's very easy in a virtual session to make sure that that person is in the room as well, and not necessarily for the whole meeting. You may have a negotiator, the person who is the operations expert in the company. You may have, for example, in a family mediation, a person who wants to consult with their children or with their parents before making a decision. And it's quite easy in a virtual situation to bring those people into the room. Now, when you're talking about an actual room, when you're doing it physically and not online, getting that person to come in, or making telephone contact with them when they weren't aware of it, can be a process which breaks up the mediation entirely. It can completely delay the proceedings. Whereas when we have a virtual session, it's quite easy to inform this party that sometime this evening, between the hours of 5 and 8, we're going to bring you in on the call, so that you can then be in on the final decision. So the CFO, the treasurer, or the board member can be in that conversation. Another related thing, which is very, very important, is that the magic of mediation, when we talk about this, is we talk about these value-added suggestions that we have, not just the numbers. We're not just deciding on how we're dividing up the money or paying off something, but we add in all these other things, not just the time of performance, but we add up, maybe I can provide this service for you. Maybe I can provide an additional contract for something else, and so forth. Maybe I can tutor your children as part of an agreement. Any possible thing that you could throw in, and we as mediators love that. That's the point of mediation. That's when we start to shine and when our eyes start to sparkle, is when we get to add in these things that were not part of the original conflict, and to increase value. And when you have a negotiator who's come in and is only, and I've had a case like this. In fact, I've had a case like this where the person was fully empowered to settle, fully empowered to sign the check for however many millions it was to settle the case, but could not agree that the CEO would then take the CEO of the other company, of the other party, to dinner, which was a major part of the agreement that was made. Again, in a virtual session, to bring that person in is really a common thing, and is not a problem, even if they're in another city, in another time zone, to just bring them up. Now, that was also, of course, always possible before the virtual hearing, but it was a strange thing. I had a situation where we had to set a telephone on the table and put Skype on it to bring somebody into the conversation. And here, where the Zoom room is there and everybody is there for the real decision to make that entry into the room, and to make that decision, is of course a very important advantage that we have. I'm going to jump ahead to the question of costs, because the cost is very interesting. We have two conflicting forces at play here. First of all, we say mediation is mediation is cheaper than litigation, and the online mediation is cheaper than in-person mediation. And of course, there are issues of access to justice. Maybe you'll be mediating for a few hours every day and can continue work. You don't have to take days off. You don't have to travel. Sometimes I mentioned at the beginning, traveling to Dubai and traveling to Germany, or traveling within the country. Maybe your plaintiff is in Mumbai and your defendant is in Ahmedabad, and they have to meet somewhere. You have, of course, that cost savings when you're doing it online. However, as much as access to justice is expanded that way in terms of course, we should not forget that the access to technology is also a question. And we want as many people to mediate their conflicts as possible. You may find people who don't have access to broadband, for example, where they would, their only choice is then their advocate tells them to litigate. They don't have access to the technologies, or they don't have means to acquire those technologies. Sometimes there are rural areas where there's no cell phone coverage, so there's no infrastructure for that. I'm personally more optimistic in this sense, in terms of access, that it will be available. Certainly, people adopt technologies very quickly, and you look 20 years ago what the penetration of cell phones were and smartphones were 20 years ago, and who they're available to today, and we see that the pace of adoption of these technologies is very high, and that the technologies are brought to distant areas, to rural areas, and so forth. So I am optimistic. However, we do have to take into consideration that there are costs at this point, where online mediation really isn't a possibility, where actually travel to a place where the mediation would take place might actually be more of a workable solution. So we've covered having the right party in the right room, and we've covered the costs. Of course, now we're coming to the psychological aspects. First of all, I'd like to make a note that in many countries now it's quite common, even in commercial cases, and I've done cases like this, where a legal professional and somebody from I would say the psychological professions, a social worker, a psychologist, do co-mediate these cases because of the psychological factors that are involved. And you find in commercial cases sometimes the tensions do heat up, and there's a lot of emotions involved, especially when it's a family-owned company and part of their identity is involved with the survival of the company. So I do believe that it's not, even in commercial cases, it's not only a matter for lawyers, and psychologists and social workers do have certain insights, and I've learned a lot from co-mediating with such individuals. I'd mostly like to mention at this point, again, to cover everything is nearly impossible. But I would like to cover some three points of specific interest in the psychological aspects, the way they're changed in ODR, and where ODR may actually give us a certain advantage. The first point being the truthfulness of the parties, and that's an interesting thing. Second, the way we conduct Zoom meetings, the way we focus on people's faces, and the third is in the matter of controlling emotions. So first, to discuss truthfulness, and this is an interesting subject. But it turns out, now, of course, again, at the beginning of every mediation, we say people have to act in good faith and with full disclosure. But as any mediator also knows, that's usually not the situation you have, at least at the beginning of the mediation. We have relevant information only disclosed first in caucuses and private sessions, and only then does it come out. But psychologically speaking, and there is research on this, that people tend to lie more in person than they do in technologically bridged situations. That is to say, in telephone calls and in Zoom conversations. This is statistical information, it's empirical. There's not really necessarily a lot of, they haven't been able to tell us why. They haven't been able to tell us why people lie less on Zoom, but it's a given fact. It's a given fact that they do, and that being the case, it's very useful in moving the mediation forward quickly. You have less time to get over the fact that people are hiding things, the fact that people are only telling partial truths. It takes less time to get over that than it might be in the room. So that's a clear advantage that's a clear advantage that ODR does give us in terms of that savings, and it decreases the workload. It decreases the cognitive load on us as the mediator to try to figure out whether somebody is lying or not. So that offsets what Ms. Mak said a little bit earlier about not having access to body language. On the other, another related thing to body language is that, of course, Zoom has changed. Not only Zoom, the other systems as well have changed to the dynamic in terms of how we see and how we look at other people. Now we have here a room full of, how many people do we have here? 41 participants. We have 41 people looking directly at my face. And you see everything. You see when I scratch my nose. You see when I touch my hair. You see when I look down at my notes, all of these things. And all of these give very, very important clues to what I'm thinking and what I'm doing, which you may not see in the room. Sometimes, especially when I mediate, I prefer not to have the sides sitting opposite each other. Because that creates conflict or it undermines the conflict. But I prefer in a triangle situation where they're both looking at me and only partially at each other. When they begin to speak with each other, then of course they look directly at each other. Sometimes they also look at me for authority or see me kind of as a judge, which I have to keep telling them that I'm not a judge and so forth. When you have the face up on the screen, there's not that problem of not necessarily seeing the person, or somebody is farther down along the table. You want to see how counsel is reacting. You want to see how the lawyer is reacting, and you can't really see because you only see the side of their face and so forth. And Zoom gives us access to much closer details about the person's reactions. Of course, if you have a room full of people, it's very difficult. But if you have a normal mediation where there are 5 or 6 people on the screen, it's very easy to see those things. And sometimes I would say that that facial expressions are as expressive as body language. Of course, you can't see people necessarily twisting their hands if they're not certain, but people make all sorts of gestures which they're not aware of. They may put their finger up to their side, they may cover a yawn and so forth. And we do get access to these. We do get access to these. 1 minute. We do get access to these. I have to turn my phone down because it's beeping that my time is almost up. Sorry about that. So you see, you can see I'm doing that as well. Can't I turn this off? All right, I need to put this away. Anyway, so you see those sort of things as well. So that's in terms of replacement for body language. It requires us to develop a new set of skills. When we are developing as mediators our skills in terms of restating things, in terms of active listening, the learning about how to interpret people's faces and how to interpret their facial expressions, what it means if they look aside like this, what it means if they're looking down, those sort of things have to enter into the repertoire of the mediator's training, and in that way we will be able to get those skills for monitoring responses close up. And of course, we're going to have to be able to use that as well with our clients, and to say to our clients, hey, did you notice what that other guy was doing? He was actually giving a little smile when you said something like that. So maybe we should be pursuing that course of action, the one that made him smile. I'd make just two more notes. One is that this is discussed constantly, is the emotional nature of mediation, and the fact that when people are on Zoom, they tend to keep their emotions in a little bit more. We see this especially in family cases, that often people don't blow up at the other party, and they don't go into shouts, and they don't need to vent when they're on Zoom calls. I haven't really delved completely into this. I have not found a major difference, I must say, but the literature does talk about that. It's easier. Let's say it's easier for the mediator to keep emotions under control, and to keep the parties' emotions under control in a virtual setting, rather than in person in the room. I would leave that as another point. Maybe my colleagues will refer to that point from their experience a little bit later on, because, as I said, I have not seen there to be a major difference. In any case, I think it's a subject for a lot of research. The last point I also want to make is, again, something from academic research, which I have just read and I have experienced as well, which is important for us as mediators to note, which is that while it is possible for the mediator to build trust with the parties in a virtual setting as well as in a personal setting, it takes more time. It takes more effort, and if you jump over that, if you ignore that, the outcomes are not going to be as positive. So you really have to put a lot more effort into building trust between yourself and the parties, building trust with the technologies. I recently had a mediation where, up until the very end, each party saw me as the representative of the other side. When that happens, that doesn't happen in an in-person mediation out of my experience. But that was the case for the first few hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, whereas in a real room, probably we would have gotten over that in the first hour. But eventually we did get over it. I proved to them that I was trustworthy, that I wasn't giving over confidential information and so forth. So that's another thing that we have to focus on in terms of training and experience, is how do we work on assuring that trust has been built, not just to think, okay, because they're smiling, we've achieved trust, but rather to actually ensure that trust exists, because if it doesn't, our work as a mediator is just not going to happen. So I've touched on a few points, as I mentioned, the autonomy of the parties and the costs, as well as some of the psychological aspects, and I've pointed out needs for including some of these new aspects, facial expressions, trust building, and so forth, in the basic training of and the advanced training of mediators. I hope some of my other panelists will argue with me, and I hope I will also get some difficult questions from the participants, people who've had other experiences, and I'll thank you for your attention. Everybody's on pictures, so I haven't really seen whether people are paying attention to me, even though that's one of the advantages of the Zoom call. And again, thanks for your time, and I hope to hear some stimulating questions from you a little bit later on. So thank you.
Thank you so very much, sir. Moving on, now I would like to introduce and invite Ms. Push Gupta, ma'am. Ma'am is a law graduate from the most prestigious law school of India, Campus Law Center, Delhi, University of Delhi, and she was admitted into bar in 1994. She did her LLM in commercial laws. She's also a mediator at the Honorable Supreme Court of India, High Court of Delhi, and at District Court of Capital of India. She has a practice and experience of more than 10 years and have mediated more than 500 cases. As a mediation trainer, she has imparted mediation training to various judicial officers and advocates and conducted various awareness programs throughout India on the importance of alternative dispute resolution mechanism. And she also represents as a counsel for the Government of India, Ministry of Environment and Forest at National Green Tribunal, New Delhi. Ma'am is also a coordinator-in-chief of e-mediation writings, first e-magazine of India dedicated to mediation. We welcome you, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Divyani. First of all, my big hug to my very dear friend Sameer. I think we started our journey together in our black and white coats when we were together in Campus Law Center. And very good morning. I don't know what's the time zone at Mr. Hanafi's country, but my namaste, because the way you concluded and your hands like this, so it's as good as namaste to us in India. Thank you, Mahek. And I can see Snathe, Akshat also, all of you there. Thank you so much. Can I just make a request before we proceed? I just shared my thoughts on this. Can everybody be on camera? Because we can see only 4-5 faces. Rest of them, all of you have put very beautiful DPs of yours, and we are just construing as to who all are looking at us. So it's good if you all can come on camera. 39 here. So let's just be face to face. Yeah, that's beautiful. I can see more faces coming in. So I'll start. So again, I thank Mr. Kanafi. I don't think so he's left anything for me to say. He's completely covered everything. I'm just going to use my expressions to repeat whatever he has already shared, because there's nothing new I'm going to share. He's just so wonderful in his complete diagram and roadmap as to what are the challenges and issues in online mediation. That's really commendable, sir. I need to learn a lot of you. And what I take back from today's inputs from you is that you've given me something new today also. What is that? Is that people don't lie much in Zoom. So I think in cross-examination in our police stations, we must stop having cross-examinations of the accused face-to-face. Let's have them on Zoom so that they won't lie. We don't have to use lie detector. There's not much space. So that's something very new. You've given me a tip. So maybe in some matters, I'll again, even if we are going for a normal days, I'll opt for mediation online. So that's critical thing. Thank you. My whole view, I say, is that, see, we all know, I think most of you are students here, or maybe you have not undergone 40 hours of mediation training, but over and all, you have some knowledge about the concept of a mediation. And in mediation, the whole process is being run by one person. That's that neutral person who is called as mediator. A mediator is supposed to exhibit from his conduct that he is truly neutral and impartial. Not just that in the mediation, a mediator always introduces and says blah, blah, things that these are the benefits of mediation, the process, such and such person, for me, you will be equal and all. No. He has to exhibit that also while conducting the mediation. So the whole purpose of a mediator is that, first of all, he has to exhibit neutrality and impartiality during his conduct. The most important role of his is that he has to facilitate the communication between the parties. Because a mediator is not supposed to be an advisor. Mediator is not supposed to be a counselor. Mediator is not supposed to be a judge. Mediator is not supposed to be an advocate. So what does a mediator do in mediation? He facilitates the communication. Whenever two parties are in dispute, are in disagreement with each other, the first thing which gets snapped between them is constructive communication. They are communicating to each other, but that constructive communication snaps. So the mediator builds that. And for building a communication and facilitating the communication in mediation, a mediator can't do that without first gathering the complete information as to what is the problem, what are the issues involved, what are the facts of the case. So the communication is communication of facts, issues, needs, interest, underlying interest. What are the options? for all this, during our face-to-face mediation, though I always say that even online mediation to me is face-to-face mediation. So I always say that let's not use word face-to-face versus online. Let's restrict to saying offline and online, because even online mediations are face-to-face mediation for me. So while we do physical mediations, we know that there is a room, 4 walls. Everybody is equally situated. We have a mediator sitting in center. We have parties left, right. We have advocates, relatives, legal representatives, or authorized representatives. We are all on the same level, in same room. So at least that facilitation in the environment, there everyone is at equidistance. There is no gap in that. But whereas in online mediation, the first problem is the space itself is equal for everyone. I'm sitting in some room, the other person may be sitting in some room, or maybe some person is standing in balcony or maybe in car. So that space itself brings a disparity in communication, various barriers in communication. So let us accept that in online mediation, yes, there are number of benefits. As Mr. Kanafi has very beautifully put that there were benefits in mediation than in litigation. But online mediation has added to those benefits. Yes, we truly agree. But since mediation is communication of interest, emotions between the parties, the facilitation on online mediation is not so comfortable. It is still a problem for a mediator. We, in mediation, when we are taught 40 hours, we are always told by our trainers, and we have realized while conducting mediation also, that the communication is in 2 series. One is verbal communication, one is non-verbal communication. Verbal is by way of words, which I am saying. And non-verbal includes your whole body structure, cluster of body clues from top to bottom. How I'm expressing, how I'm using my hands, how I'm sitting, how I'm moving, my eyes, my facial expression, everything. This is part of communication in mediation. In our day-to-day life also, we don't keep talking like 24/7 by words. We communicate to each other in our house also without not talking to them. We are still communicating to them. And we give them expression from expression. Yes, I'm understanding. So these are communication, not just mediation, but in our real life also has both verbal and non-verbal. But in mediation, a mediator cannot afford to gather information only by way of words. A mediator has to crucially adapt and note in the notepad that there is something which is unsaid or which is said with the words also. So mediator has to be very vigilant, because I'm really getting tempted towards our 40 hours curriculum of mediation, but there are very good things. One is called as solar. There's a small word which is used as solar, which says that a mediator has to sit in a solar position, SOLER. That is one way of reflecting his neutrality towards the party. S means with your square shoulders. You cannot be relaxing like this and just talking to and listening to parties. No, you have to sit with your square shoulders, open posture. You cannot cross your arms, cross your legs and be relaxed. No, not this way, relax. O stands for open posture. L stands for leaning. Whenever we are talking to somebody in a room and we want to listen to that person, that speaker, so what we generally do is we just shift our little body towards that person, just to say, yes, I am listening to you. But now in online, can you make up from screen towards whom am I listening or I'm leaning towards? No. All of you must be feeling your push ma'am is addressing me, but I may be addressing Vallavi, not Sanskriti. So that's the barrier in online mediation. Let us accept that these are the barriers. In solar, E means eye contact. Can anybody tell me that with whom I have maintained an eye contact right now? No. In fact, I am looking at my friend Sameer. And again, you will feel that she's, and maybe on screen I can stare like, oh, Sanadhi is sitting there. I cannot be portraying like this and staring in Sanidhya or Mr. Kanafi with my eye contact. So eye contact, leaning towards a person, they all go out of the window in online mediation. They have no relevance in online mediation. R is a relax. Yes, fine. Relax is okay. Even in online mediation, I can completely be relaxed, gently, and be with you and listen to the parties' conflict and their interests. That's okay. The communication, there is a rule. You can go on net if you've not yet had an opportunity to know that the communication is divided into certain percentage by one person who is named as Albert Meherban. He has divided communication into percentage, taking into verbal and non-verbal part. According to him, 7% of our communication is only by way of words. 38% is by way of how we deliver our words, tone, pitch, frequency of my words, the way right now I'm talking, whether I'm sounding confident, whether I am fearful, or I am really having jitters in my voice that, oh God, such an august gathering in front of me. So that will reflect in my tone of my voice. Then 50% is by way of body language. So while I'm speaking to you, I'm also talking to you and speaking to you by way of my body language. So I convey to you as to how am I feeling. Am I happy? These are all, am I participating in this? But in online mediation, 55% means full body language. But here right now, only till my shoulder area, I am visible to. So a mediator cannot rely certainly on the body language criteria of 55%, which is available to him in offline mediation. He has to rely only to this much of area because face speaks a lot of truth. There are universal facial gestures. There are universal facial expression on internet. It's repeatedly said that person cannot fake happiness, which comes instantly. Sadness, fear, anger, disgust, frustration. These are some reactions which comes instantly. I'm not talking about actors, but I'm talking about normal human beings. That these are very instant reaction which comes. So it's easy for me right now on screen to see that those whosoever is on camera, Mr. Savio, he's giving a good smile. I don't think so. He's faking that he's participating, but he's not. But I can actually, he's registering what I'm sharing with you all. So from his facial expression, he's giving me an indication. He's giving me a feedback. Yes, madam, what you're talking makes sense to us and we are understanding what you're trying to convey. So all this, a mediator in that 50%, the frequency of 50% gets reduced by 20-30% because we are available till this much of area. So what our eyes say, I'm wearing right. So the eye contact thing or what my eyes are saying is practically of no use to you. So what a mediator would do then? A mediator has to rely on the second part, which is that 38%, how I'm talking to you, how my volume is, and 7% is words. The mediator, when mediator is supposed to be an active listener, wherein the focus shifts from me to we. I am here to listen to you with my two big ears. My mouth will remain shut. I'm going to not just hear you, but I'm going to understand you also. That means listening. So while I'm listening to you, I will gather information from whole structure, which is your body, which is your pitch, your volume, then your words. But in online, I have to then be dependent on those 7%. If supposingly Sanskriti has some friendship issue with Mr. Savio, then she'll tell about her case. Madam, he's been a very good friend of mine, but the way he's behaved in the last few years and the way he's just taken away a few major contracts of mine and my friendship. So the moment you are saying this, I'll be making notes. But at the same time, maybe your volume of your tone, of your voice may give me an indication that there is some pain also attached to what you're reflecting orally. So I may make a note that there is some pain which is unmet to address that. So mediator, as Mr. Kanafi has rightly said, the technique is that we really have to put a lot of effort in online mediation. I would just add to that effort, which he says for building up trust and rapport, we have to be very patient in online mediation, because we are normal human beings. In face-to-face, that offline mediation also, we become, wherein we being human beings, we also relate to one party. Yes, what she's saying is right, or what he's saying is right. But since we have to switch our editor and advisory and judgmental role, we cannot do that. But we are still human beings. We control ourselves. So we control our patients also. Don't react. You have to respond. You have to give them clue from your extended booking. Yes, fine. So these are ways by in online mediation. In offline, generally we can say, yes, okay, I can understand Mr. Verma. I can understand Mr. Sharma. You've said this. But in this also, I cannot be facing toward Mr. Sharma and Mr. Verma. I have to say, Mr. Verma, yes, am I audible to you? Yes, I can understand what you have said. And this is what you told me. There are techniques which a mediator adopts. So those techniques in that 7%, mediator has to depend in online mediation on that power of 7% in our communication. He has to depend on that 7%. But again, then there is a problem attached to this 7% also. As Mr. Kanafi has also said, that many people, they log in from different devices. I may be having a small mobile with me, Android based, and my opposite party, maybe they log in from a MacBook here, and they have a good Wi-Fi system. And I may be just reliable on Jio or maybe Airtel network. So it also depends on this as to between who the communication is to be built up, how they are placed, from which platform they have logged in, from which device they have logged in, whether they are similarly situated. So that is why in online mediation, sometimes a mediation which normally happens in 6, 7, 8 sessions, in online, I have realized in 1.5 years that now on an average, it's going till 16, 17 sessions in mediation to bring the party actually to a proper place wherein they can say, yes, these are mutual agendas where we definitely want to sit back. The facilitation process really is very difficult. Mediator has to be calm, has to be composed, has to have faith in the process, because a mediator cannot compromise at all with the process and techniques and skills which he or she is supposed to take care in the offline mediation, because the process remains same, techniques remain same, skills remain same. Only thing is at what point of time wherein you have to customize, which thing you have to pick up, those are important. And there are matters, wherein we feel that though the matter in Delhi, in India, for Mr. Kanafi's knowledge, I can just tell him that in India, most of the time, private mediation has not yet flourished. It's not taken up so seriously by people, maybe because we still don't have law in India. Still feel that there may be some problem with executing a conciliated agreement. But in court-annexed mediation, India is doing wonderfully well because of the fact that honorable judges are also very much now into mediation. They feel that let matter go to the mediation instead of being litigating in front of us. They are also promoting. And our present Chief Justice has very categorically said that justice don't need black gowns, black coats. So he is also with mediation. So when the matter is referred to mediation, there is so much of duty casted upon a mediator that yes, we have to put in our best. Yes, this matter will go back to the referral court wherein the agreement will be reflected. So in online mediation, we are doing everything, every process, every skill, but only thing is it's taking too much of our effort. It's taking too much of our effort. There are matters which I feel when it is not necessary for a person to be an advocate to become a mediator. We have community mediations, we have peer mediations. So anyone whosoever is of age wherein, even age is not a criteria. There are countries wherein the students in school are conducting mediation. They go through mediation trainings or mediation awareness. So what I mean to say is that if you are in mediation, you feel that this particular matter, though I tried my level best in online mediation. But there are certain which is difficult to be dealt in online mediation. You can go for an hybrid system. You can conduct few of the session from a physical room also. You can ask party, would it be convenient for you that if for the rest of the session, let's go for a physical mediation. Even if they say that's not possible, I always say that mediators should then put a pause. There are mediators who, despite all odds, they'll keep trying. But that itself creates an impasse. Mediation is a party-centric process wherein they have to determine as to whether they would sit, and if they'll sit, what they will deliberate, and if they deliberate, what they will decide for themselves. So all these Ds are by the parties. We cannot force upon them. But in online mediation, even when we go back to the normal days, I would still feel with so many benefits it has added to the concept of mediation, people are going to come back and say, can we have this online mediation by way of online mediation? The problem would be the culture plays a lot of what is the culture background of the parties and also of the mediator. See, if I take, for instance, I'll just give you an example, hypothetical situation. There is a couple, there is a matrimonial dispute between a couple, and they're residing in Germany, Mr. Kanafi's country. They have faced some matrimonial differences and they want a mediator appointed. They go to Mr. Kanafi, can you please mediate? Can you be our mediator? We jointly appoint you. And then there is a person who asks them that since you are Indian based, the couple with Indian background, the culture, the background, religion is all Indian, though you've settled now in Canada, don't you think it will be feasible for you to engage a lawyer, engage a mediator who is from an Indian background? So these things do play a major role. The person who is mediating is from the same background because understanding cannot be half-cooked. The parties are sharing, Mr. Kanafi, they'll share, okay, in Indian culture, we have Diwali seasons, we have gift system wherein the bridegroom's parent, they give gifts to the groom family, and then there are exchange of gifts. Then he'll laugh, what nonsense is this? Maybe he won't exhibit that on screen. He will not, he'll restrict, but from inside heart, what culture and what practice is this? So he may not be able to appreciate that. So in that event, if we have chances in times to come, we'll have online mediation, like we have cross-border disputes. There are other disputes, all commercial litigation and mediation. It is happening. People are choosing mediation of arbitration. But I would still say that in online mediation, be it an offline mediation, if it is cross-country matrimonial disputes, family disputes, relationship issues, then it will definitely also have a big question mark and a debate whether the mediator they appoint should be from the same background, if the parties belong to the same background. It may be one is from Canada, one is from India, then they have no choice. We cannot have a division bench of two mediators mediating a matter. There has to be one mediator. So reading body language from a culture is also, in many countries, if you do like this, is considered as respectful. But if you do like this, they say, what is nonsense? Again and again, he's nodding at. So there are different ways to read the body language also. So those challenges definitely add on to the challenges to online mediation, but with so many benefits attached to it, cost, economic, travel expenses. If you save on traveling, then you can probably engage a better lawyer to represent you as advocate in the mediation. So if you're saving on that, people have to really get out of their job for one day, because many in India are on daily wages. And if you're going to courtroom, your daily wage gets cut. So in online mediation, a person doesn't have to bother to that also, that in the end, my money, my salary will cut because I was off from my work for 4 days. Let's accept that all are not equally situated economically also. In court, we say many times there are two parties. One comes with a brigade of heavy loaded advocates and the other one comes with an advocate from legal aid service. This is already there in open litigation, courtroom litigation. But in online mediation, they'll again have the same problem. but at least they'll be able to save the cost which they have to incur on traveling, in going to the courtroom, taking the off from their job, putting many things at stake. So with all benefits, like in education, right now we are on online. So always take positivity first and neutralize your negativity with the benefits you have in online mediation. Communicate well, concentrate as to whether we have to concentrate on 7% more or 38%, or in 55% only on the facial expression with smile, because if you research on it, there are roughly around 10,000 facial expressions a humankind can make. The simple face with 4 or 5 senses, they can make 10,000 expressions. So there are no universality. You have to read it. There are books on body language. Body language is my favorite. I just would like to be a listener who, whenever somebody speaks on body language, so I make notes. So online mediation, the problem is body language, the facilitation of communication with the barriers of reading body language, because body language constitutes the part of 100% of communication, and gathering information, because when you do mediation, you know, you will also realize when we are doing mediation, we also, if right now I'm talking to you, we are conducting mediation, we always also look in and around the other people who are sitting there just to see their reaction. If plaintiff is advocating their case in mediation, a mediator slightly looks through the other side also. What's their reaction? Whether they are okay with that or they are irritable. So it sends a clue to a mediator that yes, some problem is coming from there. But in online mediation, also I can look through the defendant counsel or the party's reaction, but their discomfort from their body language, shifting chair and looking here and there, moving arms, that's missing. So the half information comes in that 55%. But yes, if mediator has faith in the process of mediation and they don't play with the process of mediation and the communication skills and techniques, online has a long life and it will stay and it will keep blessing the needies who have been away from justice delivery system because of the cost and time. Online is here to, in fact, serve those people. There are problems, big mobile, small mobile, big laptop, desktop. In India, we have people who have just one system, wherein their child is also have to log in for classes, husband has to attend the call center calls, wife has to attend some webinar. So these are challenges, but it's okay. With time, it will be handled. So let's be receptive to whatever we have and accept that mediation is here, is going to stay here, and online mediation is going to be the talk of tomorrow also. People will restrict to online also. Offline is there, but online has major role to play. Everybody is busy in life. So here you can customize as per your need, time, your money, everything. So that is all. It's a big topic which can be deliberated further, but thank you all. This much I can contribute. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, ma'am. That was very, very insightful. If you may allow, then we shall take some questions.
Yeah, please.
There's some questions in the chat box also. For you, ma'am, that how to be impartial when judging based on reactions and body language. These signs could be fake and not true. Vallavi, can you see the technical, what happened to ma'am's voice? Yes.
Done, ma'am. Ma'am, you are the co-host now.
I did ask.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was muted. I was requesting to unmute. So that's to me or to it's ma'am. So can you just repeat, ma'am, how to be impartial when judging based on reactions and body language? These signs could be fake and not true. Yes. So I'll restrict to this. And this is coming from Lafa Jaffa. Can a person come on screen? because I should see your reaction and body language before I take on to this query of yours. Let me do justice to your query. Is the person here with us? Divyani, can you help me?
Ma'am, she is writing that her camera has some problem. Sorry.
Okay. I hope it's just the camera which has a problem, nothing else. But anyhow, that's a joke. Yes. First of all, Jaffa, I would say we have to delete the word judging. When we are talking about mediation, there cannot be any judging. Judging means they are biased. We are shifting towards one party. Yes. The reactions and the body language. Whenever a person speaks, there are certain instant body languages which goes with whatever he's saying. The fake ones are only later on, like, you know, when they plan and they script as to what is to be said and how to be behaved. But in first initial joint session, when a mediator conducts and they tell about the case, that plaintiff tells about their case and defendant is looking through, the instant reaction of defendant would not be fake. That's natural. That's the first reliable information which will be written on the body of that person. So please pick that up. But yes, later on, during the session, maybe if you adjourn it to some other day and the parties again come back, by then they will be tutored by their lawyer or whosoever is guiding them. Okay, next time you go, please try to convince mediator madam and by behaving like this. You know, for initial 3-4 sessions, most of the time that we are judges, it is difficult for us to tell them repeatedly by our behavior and by words that we are not judges. We are just bridge between both of you. For us, both of you are equal and we are not going to pass any order and judgment. But they try to win your trust. They try to convince you and take you with them that if madam gets inclined to me by looking into my emotion, my tears, my fear or sadness, then madam may give me favor. So you take little time to bring them to a situation wherein you tell them, no, for me, both of you are equal. Irrespective of whatever your case is, I'm going to be there for you at equal time for equal reasons. So don't worry on that. So initial time goes like this, but later on, yes, body language can be faked, but that's always, which is not instant. So make a difference between instant reaction, a reaction which comes immediately when a speaker is speaking. A receiver gives an instant reaction, but there are chances when they deliberately enact a body language which goes against their words. There is no synchronization between what they are saying and what their body language is telling. So be alert as a mediator to pick up whether they are in tune with what they are saying and what they are saying from their body or not. There is a very, very good, beautiful video on internet. Then you can visit that body language never lies. So they speak about those languages of body which are instant. Acting is different, but instant reactions are instant responses to a person's reaction to whosoever they listen or they are in touch with or they are in conflict. So the faking, the time period has to be seen by the mediator. That's come instantly or not. If Divyani and Mr. Savio, they are in conflict, and right now Divyani is telling me about the case, ma'am, these are the facts and these are the issues. I am really benefited in online mediation that I can look at Mr. Savio without informing Divyani that I'm looking at Mr. Savio. She will still feel madam is listening to me, but I am actually looking to his reaction. So these are benefits. In real offline mediation, if I stop looking at Divyani when she's speaking and I repeatedly tell Mr. Savio, she'll say, what mediator is this? She's not interested in me. She's again looking that side. So that may give a wrong impression. But here I can simply, from face expression of Mr. Savio, whether he's waiting to jump in and interject what she's saying is nonsense and absurd thing, whether he's agreeing, okay, now I'm waiting for mine. So I can read certain things from this much area also in online mediation. So that's not fake. I hope I'm able to answer that query. Is there any other query related to this, or Thank you, Mr. Sergio.
I think I would add to that, if I may.
Please, sir. Please, sir.
Yeah, that at least from my experience also, even if somebody is faking it, and they may try to fake at the beginning, once the mediation goes on and you're in there for hours and 1 hour and 6 hours and 10 hours, eventually it will break down at some point. I think nobody is that good at protecting their body language. In fact, their face may be saying one thing and their body is saying something else. That nobody is really that. There may be somebody that's good. That's possible. But in any situation, you may have somebody who's so good a liar. In criminal law, you may have that someone who's so good, or you may have that. But in the end, of course, it's also open to the other party. The other party has to agree to what's being offered, and at the end, with you going at it and them going at it, and maybe the lawyers are in the room as well, it's very difficult to maintain a fake, I think, a fake position. And sometimes you see that it falls away after enough time. And again, patience, like you said yourself, you must have patience. And if you think something is wrong, something doesn't sound right, just the way they said one word, you keep going and keep going and keep going. And then I think with a decent mediator, it will come true. The person who asked the question, I must say, she said, how can you do that without having psychological training? The truth is that we are half psychologists. We're half lawyers, but we're half psychologists, I think, as well. And that's one of the difference between us and the judge, is that we bring those things into play. Again, from life experience, from training, from like you were saying, studying books and videos on body language, all of those things. But yes, it's one of the skills of a mediator, which goes beyond just maybe a LLB degree.
Completely, I agree with what Mr. Kanafi has said. Yes, after some point of time, that faking also goes, when that is a situation wherein finally parties have agreed. Yes, mediation is a place where we can sit and deliberate on our issues, wherein they have a consensus on building an agenda, and they want to sit and work on various options and solutions. Then they stop faking. So it may be, yes, it gets diluted. Completely agreeable to what Mr. Kanafi has said, because we're going to take away many things. Tomorrow, maybe day after tomorrow, we may add on something to this online mediation challenges and issues. The moment you learn from others, you should always take something new, and there is so much to add on to this. It's just a new, what we could not have thought for next 10 years. This pandemic has given us in just a span of almost 1 year online. We were not so online. Earlier, we were criticized by our parents, why you hook to your mobile? But now our parents are pampered every time they are hooked to mobile, so that criticism has gone. Yes.
Can we take another question? This is a question from Sanskriti. Sanskriti, would you like to unmute and speak for yourself?
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir. My question was, like, is there any difference in the time duration for the conducting physical and virtual sessions while you're conducting mediation? Because there might be some problem to concentrate from the party's side to concentrate for a while during the virtual sessions. So, and that can also change their behavior or their mood during the mediation. So how can we tackle that?
Mr. Kanafi, please, you take to this, please.
Okay. All I can say, I've read some statistics and also from experience that what you're saying, Sanskriti, is true. There's this phenomenon of Zoom fatigue. For how long can you look at these postage stamps all the time and just not to go crazy? So, I mean, when you talk about the length of mediation, the question, are you talking about how many days does it spread out over, or are you talking about how many hours are you sitting in the mediation room? I think both can be extended. First of all, not only Zoom. I think perhaps the mediator themselves might say that it's better to only mediate for X hours in one session, because then people are losing concentration and so forth. So if you set in advance, we're not going to talk more than 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours today, whatever it is, then that's fine. Also taking more frequent breaks. That's also a necessary thing. In terms of the length of the mediation, and Ms. Bush said this earlier as well, that in terms of the trust building process and the difficulties of only verbal communication as opposed to having nonverbal communication, that it will extend the time in terms of hours, mediation hours as well. You will have to put more effort in, more patience into it to get the good result. So I think in both ways it extends the time. But you should also think about this, that most of us also have 2 or 3 more hours extra a day now, because we're not commuting to work and we're not sitting in traffic. So we have more time to devote to our mediations and to participate in mediations as well. And that so there is at the end of the day there's a balance. But I think in both senses, yeah, you might see more of a time investment, but in a lot of cases you'll get the better result as well.
I'll just add to this, Sanskriti, just to tell you, because since in Indian scenario, it may not be there in knowledge of Mr. Kanafi. Mr. Kanafi, here in India, in our both next mediation, we have a problem with the time slot. The host of our mediation session is always from the mediation center, and they give us 1 hour slot of conducting a mediation session in a day. So that's one of the biggest barrier and barricade to conduct mediation smoothly, in a smooth manner, because sometimes what happens, maybe after 50 minutes, you come to a situation wherein parties feel like talking to you. And the moment you're reaching 54, 55, there is a message erupting on screen, madam, you left with just 4 minutes, 3 minutes. So that, chain of thoughts which you accumulated in last 50 minutes get disrupted. So this is another problem. And it's private, but here in India, in Court and Ex mediation, the problem is that we are given a slot of only 1 hour to conduct a session in a day with regard to one case. So that's one problem. In private, you can customize and you can buy for like maybe 2-3 hours, you can run a continuous. But this is the major problem which I feel needs to be addressed by our honorable courts in times to come, because there are other mediations, other mediators are waiting. But this really breaks sometimes a lot of constructive work which has been done in mediation. Maybe in next time the parties, again, you have to just work hard to bring them back to that situation where they were at 54 minutes. Then that's one problem.
So I have a question in the WhatsApp chat box that what do you think is the ideal time? Like, should the mediation continue for entire day or for like 2-3 hours, or?
Mr. Kanafi, please.
Okay. Again, from when we were doing face-to-face in-person mediations, then normally it was different between a strict commercial business-to-business mediation, where it was often done in one day. That is to say, you set up, you leave one day 8 hours, often leave the next day if there are other things left over, and then it's done in one shot. Whereas other sorts of mediations, civil mediations, family mediations, construction, whatever, are often done in a kind of in a split up way, and they take the time they take. But normally when people ask me for an estimate, of course you can't know in advance. When people ask me for an estimate, I say 10 to 12 hours, but that's completely not 10 to 12 hours continuously often, but that's my estimate for a standard mediation. Again, you never know what's going to happen. You can finish in 4 hours. You can also go on for 20 hours. Yeah, normally I think in the commercial, in a private commercial mediation, you'll do it in 1 day or 2 days continuously. Whereas in the other forms, give people time to think, give people time to process, and so forth.
Mr. Kanafi, I must say that you're a very patient mediator, the way you said, because I'll put myself in that 4-hour bracket. I won't be able to conduct more than this. So if I'm not able to conduct, I won't think I'll be able to do justice to the process, to my ethics. But hats off to you. So tomorrow, in case there is a party approaching to me which needs a lot of time in a day for mediation, I'll say, I have a friend, Mr. Kanafi, I'll refer to him because he is full of patience to sit as mediator for 10 hours or maybe throughout the day. So hats off to you.
Thanks. Well, also in commercial mediations, they pay by the mediation and not by however many hours it takes. So you have, even if it goes on and on, you have to, you're getting paid the same. So you might as well do a good job.
We have one last question. That in online mediation, though being a relief during pandemic, comes with a good cost to it also. People might not be willing to try this new system. So how do we build the trust?
Ma'am, maybe you take this one because I've taken 2 so far.
Can you just repeat, Divyani?
Sure, ma'am. That online mediation, though being a relief during pandemic, comes with a good cost to it also, that people might not be willing to try this new method. So how do we build trust?
See, basically, yeah, if you are asking me to reply this in my capacity as a mediator, then we are not supposed to get to them and give them the benefits of mediation. The role of advocates come in. The parties, whenever they are in dispute, they approach a legal counsel and attorney to advise them as to what is the remedy available to them. If it is already they are litigating, the counsel will tell them that you can ask the court to refer the matter for mediation, and mediation has these benefits. And now you don't have to travel also. If your partner, if your maybe spouse, they are staying away from your place of residence, maybe different country, we can have the benefit of online. The job of a mediator comes only once he is appointed as a mediator in online mediation. So a mediator will be able to tell them the benefits of mediation only by giving them the space, by delivering his conduct in such a way wherein they feel, yes, there is hardly any difference. I was communicating with my counterpart, madam was mediating, was communicating between us. There was hardly any barriers. There were hardly any walls. So from our conduct, we have to show them that yes, mediation of online mediation is as good as offline mediation. You are not facing any problem. If you want to switch off this mediation right now, it's fine. We can meet up tomorrow. We can fix up another slot. So these are what. But the role of an advocate, if we want to take mediation to another level where we all feel like it deserves, be it online, the role of an advocate will definitely play a very crucial and important role. If they tell them that, yes, it has benefits, and especially, see, only they know whether this matter is based on simply on positions or on underlying interest or on emotions. If they know that there is certain which can be handled in mediation, they should guide the parties to mediation door. A mediation door not necessarily in a building of a mediation center, online mediation also. So the awareness has to be brought in to the advocates, wherein they tell the benefits of mediation, they tell the benefits of online mediation, the role of a mediator, how it's going to help them. So the advocate has to play a major role in guiding, not an advocate. There's a difference between an attorney and an advocate also, a legal counsel. You are an advocate only once you file your wakalatnama in courtroom to litigate for your client. So before that, you are just a legal counsel or an advisor. So there is a difference whether a lawyer will participate as an advocate in mediation or whether they are going to be friend or they are going to be just supportive to their clients in mediation. So we can have another session wherein we need to define the role of advocates in mediation, how they have to construct themselves and how they have to switch to a different role from advocacy to advising.
Thank you so very much, our esteemed panelist, Ms. Pushp ma'am and Ambassador Kanafi sir. So with this, I would like your permission to conclude this session if we don't have any more questions. Anyone? Ms. Divya Sehwal has a question. Mr.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, this is my name is Kamal Sahwal. Ma'am, I want to ask that we see the mediation like a community mediation. Our community level, some people mediate, especially family matters, and there they may not be using legal, legal concepts. Actually, while we are mediating, we have to be under legal, whatever we call it, under the law. But sometimes they were using concepts which is not legalized yet. And then what are the values? What are the legal values of such mediations? Actually, they are not illegal, but they are not legalized yet. That is my question.
Yes, that's a very valid question and a query which I think is very good for the other participants also to know. If I just correct me whether I've understood your question properly or not before I take that. You're saying that in community mediation, there are certain legal aspects also attached to it, and whether there is a legal sanctity to people mediating in community. What is the sanctity available? Is that so what you're asking? Legal values, yeah, legal issues, and sanctity available if they agree in community mediation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. One thing more, ma'am. Actually, while they are adjudicating the matter, they use something beyond the existing legal concept. Sometimes they use it. So in that case, what will be the legality of the judgment or adjudication?
See, Mr. Divya, yes. First of all, we have to see that in community mediation.
Sorry. Actually, this name is something wrong. Kamal. My name is Kamal. Yes.
You are Mr.
Kamal. Yes, Sahwal. It's my wife's ID. I'm using it. Yeah.
Chalo, that's so. I would say Mr. Divya Sehwal. So we always say Mrs. Kamal. So let me today use Mr. Divya Sehwal. Let you be given a recognition by the name of your wife. Yeah. So, sir, yes.
You have opened a new concept.
So let me just take that. See, in community mediation, first of all, as I told you earlier also, it is not required that a mediator has to be an advocate with an advocate background. First of all, one is this. Any respectable citizen of respectable age and experience in life can take a mediation training. But only thing is that person should undergo a 40 hours mediation training. That's the minimum criteria for a person to sit on the chair as a mediator, be it community mediation. One is this. If supposingly in your residential welfare society that there is a dispute which arises between a landlord and a tenant, and I am not Pushp Gupta advocate, I am just a mediator with no LLB background. They come and say that we have heard about madam, she's always been mediating well between the parties. Let's go and appoint her. Let's take her. Fine. So I will be able to deal with their issues vis-a-vis their emotions. But when it comes to writing whether that landlord has certain rights under, because we have a legislation governing this dispute, landlord and tenant. So we cannot ignore that. We have to see that supposingly tomorrow they agree for a settlement, because any settlement which is outside the court and system is not called as mediation agreement. That is called as conciliated agreement. And in that, a mediator is called as conciliator, but not as mediator. Supposing the parties agree, okay, the tenant has agreed that he will evict the premises after 1.5 years. And during this 1.5 years, he is going to pay an increased rate of rent also. and tenant says, okay, I'll pay you 50% extra to the to landlord to what I've been paying you earlier. So there may be legal hassle involved under the rent law, wherein which may say that a 10% increase is genuine after 3 years of tenancy. It says so, maybe it's gone to 20. So there are certain legal aspects, and if you are not accompanied by a legal advocate, by a person who has a knowledge, expertise, you may get them write a settlement which may not be easily executable before the court, executing court. The executing court will definitely send the matter back for mediation, saying that person has written something which is as per law is not acceptable. So in matters where there are legal issues, please always ask parties, or if you are mediating, please ask them to come with a lawyer and tell them, because when you conduct mediation in the opening statement introduction, when you tell them about the role of a mediator and what mediation is, how this mediation is going to be conducted, you have to tell them that you are not a lawyer and you don't know much about the rent law legislation. Do they still want you to continue as mediator in this case? Even after the knowledge that you don't have a legal background, you don't have knowledge, parties say, yes, madam, we would still want you to continue as mediator, then please carry on. We have to carry our ethics from right from the beginning of welcome, introduction, and opening statement. Do not take up a matter wherein you don't have an expertise. I'm not saying expert, PhD and all, but basic knowledge. What the dispute involves, you should have a basic knowledge of it. If you don't have, just say, sorry, please appoint someone else. I may not be able to facilitate in this matter as I'm supposed to do. But even if after that you're wanting me to mediate, to help you sort out, to build up communication, I'm ready. So these are certain things which a mediator should, people do just because they feel, yeah, we'll get money, let's do it. But that's unfair. At least I would not indulge in a matter. I would not conciliate in a matter wherein I know I am not comfortable with the subject matter. How can you facilitate the transmission of communication issues and agendas? Because we always say, let's not focus on position, let's focus on interest. But there are certain positions which are non-negotiable, which are based on legal issues. How can you ask parties to just ignore that and just talk about underlying interest based on emotions? You cannot. So let's be very honest when you take up matter. Be sure that you know the integrities of the subject matter. Tomorrow you write this settlement with the help of the parties in their own words. You should be able to do justice truly to your own conscience also, not just mediation. I always say it's for the parties, of the parties, by the parties. Yes, but there is duties attached to mediators also. That please be honest in your working and functioning in your duties. I hope, Mr. Divya Sehwal, I've answered your query.
Thank you. Yes, very detailed. It may have follow-up questions, but it may go very long. So I hope in next sessions I'll be putting up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So now we conclude the session here. I would, on behalf of Team ADR Hawk, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to our esteemed panelists for taking up this session. And both our advisors, Push ma'am is our senior advisor, and Kanafi sir is our global advisor. So I really hope that we can have you both for our future sessions as well. We have done in the past a lot of arbitration workshops and sessions, but in this year, as Sameer sir recommended, we intend to do workshops and trainings on mediation. So our participants will definitely see more of you both. So thank you so very much. Mehak ma'am is involved somewhere, so she could not be here to thank you, but we thank you a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was really wonderful meeting a new friend now, Mr. Kanafi. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you too. I think we had a really good discussion.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, we should all continue. And good luck to all of you in your mediation.
Yes.
I hope you have successful mediation careers as well.
Thank you so much, everyone. My dear friends, Samir, Divyani, Mr. Savio, Sanidhya, Sanskriti, everyone, thank you so much. God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.
Dear participants, we'll be having another session in 1 hour, in 45 minutes. So if you wish to stay for that, you may leave the meeting on. The meeting is still on. So thank you for joining the session. And we'll be floating feedback forms after the closing ceremony. So in case anyone wants the certificates, do fill the form. Sanitha, the meeting is on, right? Who is the host? You are the host.
Samir sir is not there, I think.
The next session is at 6.
Okay.
Yeah.